As doctors, we come in all shapes and sizes. Some are non confrontational, some are opinionated. Some are liberal, some are conservative. Some have incredible caring bedside manners, and some are neurosurgeons. Don't kill me. But one thing that most physicians have in common is we are risk averse. So it's always been surprising to me when I talk about multiple streams of income and getting involved in investing. The first thing that doctors want to go to is real estate. And real estate can make you a lot of money, but you got to be smart about it. And when it comes to real estate investing, the guy that you need to talk to is Dr. Peter Kim. He's an anesthesiologist who started his real estate career and is now financially independent. And he's got an incredible conference that's coming up in LA that you won't want to miss. I'll be talking with the passive income MD himself, Dr. Peter Kim, on this episode of Bootstrap MD. Hey guys, this is Dr. Michael Ming. Welcome to the podcast. Welcome to Bootstrap MD. I've been trying to chase this gentleman for the last few months, and I finally got a hold of him. I'm sure you've heard of him. He's the passive income MD. And it was interesting. When I was getting back into entrepreneurship after starting a successful practice, I was looking to see who were the thought leaders, who were the influencers out there. And I kept seeing this passive income MD. And I go, passive income MD. I was really intrigued because when I got started a few years ago, no one was really been talking about it. And then it just so happened I was in the middle of buying a house. And then I found this real estate service that helps physicians get physician real estate loans. And then I met this gentleman, or I talked to the gentleman who started it. I listened to him on a podcast. And then I found out that those people were the same person. And then I finally got to meet him. He's a really cool guy. So without further ado, the passive income MD himself, Dr. Peter Kim. Peter, how you doing?
Hey, I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on the show. I'm honored. This is awesome.
Well, again, I know you've been really busy. You've been going to Amsterdam and seeing Tony Robbins, and you've got a course out there, and you've got a seminar that we're going to talk about coming up this fall that you have to attend, especially if you're going to do real estate. But Peter, I want to, again, thank you. I'm going to read the quick bio about your school because, we always like this stuff. You attended the University of Maryland School of Medicine, go Terrapins, completed the anesthesiology residency at USC, and you currently practice in the LA area. So we got that out of the way. Let's kind of talk about what you're currently doing. You're a real estate entrepreneur. You're a physician influencer. You got a very popular blog out there and a Facebook group that I belong to too that you need to check out. And you got all these different things. But Peter, if you don't know me, I'm a kind of a nerd, and I'm a big fan of comic books, superheroes, and they always got that secret origin, right? How Peter Parker turned into Spider-Man. So how did Dr. Peter Kim become the passive income MD?
Well, mine's not as exciting as those stories, Mike. But I pretty much follow the same path I think most people listening to this followed. I mean, you work hard, you study hard, you have the goal of being a physician, and you have, you imagine what the good life will be once you're done. And you're going to live a good life, you're going to get married, have a family, live well, treat patients, and ultimately, someday ride into a nice retirement. And I think that was the path that I expected to take. I thought that was the path my father was taking. And then a couple of years into actually practicing and becoming an attending, things started to change a little bit. I mean, my job started to change, the politics there, just the time, the income. And I kind of felt like I was stuck. I mean, I realized, look, I'm not in control of this whole thing. And if I'm not in control of this thing, I mean, what I imagined in 5-10 years, maybe those things won't come true. Maybe I'll be stuck in a pretty poor position. And ultimately my family and I don't know, I hate to use the word suffer from it, but that's kind of what I felt. I mean, there was going to be some pain down the line. And so I decided to take matters into my own hands, and I started to asking other physicians around who seemed pretty happy. Maybe they're a little older than I was, seemed a little bit further down the path, seemed to have it all together, had good family lives, like had a smile on their face when they came to the hospital. I just started asking them. I said, what are you doing like with your life, with your finances, with your investments and things like that, so that you're able to live the life that you want? And people gave me all sorts of different answers. And it was usually something outside of medicine, to be honest with you. It was either some sort of business. It was a lot of people. It was happened to be real estate. Some other people were doing it through the market and doing some stock investments. And so I started listening to all those people. And again, the common thread among the majority of them that I kind of happened to run into were investing in real estate. And so I started really looking into that. And it just happened that my father-in-law, he always talked about having some apartment buildings and things like that, but I didn't really pay attention. But finally, after all these conversations, I said, I should probably talk to him about it. And so I approached my father-in-law and I approached a bunch of different people. And I realized that, hey, with this other income coming in from outside medicine, it really allows you to shape your life inside medicine. And I was like, wow, that concept like totally blew my mind. I mean, it's not that you're trying to get out of medicine necessarily, but it's really allowing you to kind of practice medicine on your own terms. And so I said, all right, I'm diving into this. I'm going to figure this whole thing out. I'm going to just take some steps. And so I just started consuming as much content as I could, whether it was podcasts, books, going to meetings, taking courses. And really, I was just like, consuming content. But then I realized, hey, I got to start taking action, because you can consume what you want for years and really not take any action. And so, yeah, I just started investing. I started dabbling in some crowdfunding. I started investing in some things called syndications, you get shares of apartment buildings. And then I moved on to my own direct ownership. And, I started businesses. Curbside real estate is the one you kind of happen to interact with. And that's how I met you. And these things kind of all go together. And life is about momentum, I think. And once you kind of start and take that first step, you take that, just that leap, things start to kind of roll and opportunities start coming your way. And that's kind of how this is where I kind of ultimately, found myself to you.
So going back there, you've got a lot of doctors that are talking about real estate, and I heard that too, in residency, the emergency room doctors got something on the side. But you said your family was not really involved in real estate, right? So it was really, you had to be the one to kind of be the impetus for all of this, correct?
Yeah, I mean, I always like to tell people, they kind of talk about like how you got started and things like that. And there's a book called Rich Dad, Poor Dad that some people out there might be familiar with. It's a book by Robert Kiyosaki, and talks about different types of income, how they're made, and ultimately what your life can be shaped and how it can be totally different by the time you get to whether it's called retirement. It's about creating basically cash flow through other investments. And when I looked at my own life, my own father, my whole side of the family, my father was a physician, by the way. He's a colorectal surgeon, and he worked hard. I mean, he provided for the family. He did an amazing job. But when it came time to retire, honestly, he felt a little uncertain about where he was going to be in terms of his finances and what that might look like. And honestly, I think he worked a little bit longer than he wanted to work just because he felt uncertain. And then I looked at my father-in-law and I started talking to him a bit. And turns out he had started investing in real estate right from the get-go, coming right out as an attending, started saving, investing pretty wisely. And it turned out he essentially on paper, he retired years ago. And in fact, he started practicing just for fun for the last 10, 15, 20 years. So I looked at these things and it kind of felt like the rich dad and the poor dad. I mean, they both had good finances. They supported their families, did an amazing job. But where they ended up in life, even though they kind of had the same lifestyles all throughout, was going to be totally different. And so that's something that I saw, and that kind of motivated me to, I got to change things.
I think you really bring up a good point. And I think what physicians really have some trouble on is, just like myself, I didn't imagine when I went into medical school in residency that I would just have a job, right? And then I would work there for the next 30, 40 years and have some pension or something at the end. But it's really kind of difficult for doctors to understand that you need to start building assets.
Yeah.
And I like to say, if all your income is based on how many patients you see, it's not going to work these days. Why do you think that there is that difficulty with physicians? Because I know there's a lot of people who want to get into real estate, but you find out these same people a year from now, 2 years from now, and they don't do it. What do you think kind of stops them from doing it?
I mean, there's fear there, just like there is with anything else. I mean, it's not just physicians. I think physicians as a group, though, in general, are very, very calculated and they're risk averse type people. I mean, in our jobs right now, we kind of take all the evidence and try to make the best decision, based on all the evidence and research and that sort of thing. And so when it comes to real estate investing, I mean, it's a little bit sometimes like the Wild Wild West. I mean, you don't always have all the information that you need to always make the best decision. And some of it, you gotta it's based on experience, based on your gut. There is information and research that you can do, but I mean, it takes a big leap. And so I think a lot of physicians have a tough time getting over that hump. And so, and there are excuses. I mean, they're busy people. I mean, that's the truth. I mean, physicians are really, really busy. So last thing you want to do when you come home at the end of the day, treating patients, dealing with, the paperwork, insurances, everything like that. At the end of the day, you want to spend time with your family. And that's okay. You spend time with your family, but when do you actually have time to actually start learning about this stuff? I mean, what, on the weekends or things like that? So it's difficult. So I understand there are some challenges for physicians to get over the hump. But then again, I've seen a lot of physicians do it and be successful. And ultimately, I think it's about really figuring out what your priorities are and making sure that, you put the right energy and time into things that really will pay off for you in the end. And so I think physicians we have a unique advantage though. I mean, we have our day jobs, which are, relatively stable. They make good incomes. And, the one thing about investing in real estate is when you have capital to invest to start out with, that really puts you ahead of the game. I mean, there's a lot of people who invest in real estate with very little capital that are scrapping, figuring out, scraping the bottom of the barrel for these deals. A lot of physicians that have that disposable income, they've saved up. I mean, they're able to jump into some pretty nice investment properties or investment deals right away that are able to produce that cash flow. And so I think that's what I encourage physicians. I say, look, you're not necessarily behind the ball. You have a great advantage and you have that opportunity. And plus you're smart. You're smart. You have the ambition and it's not all that difficult. I mean, it's learning a new language in some ways, but
Right.
Once you kind of get over that hump, there's no reason physicians can't be successful at this.
It's like innovating, right?
Yeah.
Eventually, you got to just go and do it.
Right.
You can read all about it, but before you actually do that.
Exactly.
So you did all this research about real estate. You consumed everything, but even then, you kind of did a little bit of I wouldn't say baby steps, but before you actually did complete ownership, you got involved into crowdfunding and syndication. Maybe you can tell us a little bit about these two vehicles.
Sure. I mean, crowdfunding, for those that are familiar, they might be familiar with the concept based on something called Kickstarter, where people are able to kind of invest small little amounts into a bigger project. Well, something in 2012 came about where there's something called the Jobs Act that was enacted by President Obama, which allowed a lot of these opportunities, these real estate opportunities that were once kind of like part of the old boys network where you had to know somebody. Those were allowed to now be advertised on the internet. And so that's where crowdfunding real estate really kind of popped up and allowed people to invest in deals and opportunities for a very, very small minimum using the internet and technology. And some of these minimums were now $1,000, $5,000. And so for someone like me who just wanted to get started and I wasn't sure what I was doing, I mean, I'm scared to put in, buy my own rental property for a couple $100,000. Maybe I'm too scared to put in, 50 or 100,000 for some of these more syndications or funds, but you know what? 5,000 looked pretty good at that time. And so I thought that might be a good way to start. And so that's why I jumped in. I put my 5,000 into a 6-month deal. It was a debt deal where essentially we acted as the bank for a fix and flipper who needed that money to renovate his property and then sell it and then return the money with interest. And so that's what I did. And it was 6 months. I was scared. Honestly, I was scared to put that money in. And then after that first month, I saw little deposits in my bank account. That, built some confidence. The second month, I saw another one. Third month, and by the end of 6 months, I got my whole capital back with with interest. And I was like, all right, this is pretty sweet. And so I started learning more about it. I started investing in other deals, and eventually that led to direct ownership. And not only do direct ownership, but I still do crowdfunding, and I still invest in these syndications and funds, which are kind of these operator or kind of professionally led kind of deals. And putting all those together really allows me to get that cash flow that I want.
And where would they go to get more information about that? Do you have that on your website, or are there groups that you go to?
Yeah, I mean, I talk about it a lot on my website. It's funny how it all started. It's not my website, by the way. I didn't necessarily intend it to be what it is. I had a bunch of friends asking me about, I was raving about real estate and I couldn't stop talking about it. And I was trying to do it in the OR, because I'm an anesthesiologist. I work with surgeons. I work with a lot of different people, GI, radiologists. And I was just talking about it all the time and getting really excited about it. And people said, look, I don't have time to talk about it now, but if you had a blog, I would love to read about it. And so finally it took me a year from the point I decided to do it to actually put something on the computer. But I did it and it kind of just happened to blow up. But so I do talk about the things that I'm doing myself, which are, crowdfunding. I talk about the best real estate crowdfunding sites. You can find that on my site. I talk about syndications. I talk about funds, how to do that. And as well as my Facebook group called the Passive Income Docs. If you're a physician, that's a great place to be. And as you also know, I've also kind of started branching out into some courses, creating my own courses and educational content, as well as we, for the very first time, have a conference this fall.
Yeah, and we're going to talk more about that. So we don't want to let the cat out of the bag just yet. Yeah. We'll give them a little something to keep going on. And that website is Passive Income D, and we'll have links on the notes.
Sure, passiveincomemd.com. Passiveincomemd.com.
And so that was kind of my next question. So you just did that because you were talking all about it, and your friends kept asking more information. Say, I'm just going to put it onto the website. That's really interesting.
Yeah, it's funny. I had no background in this. It's not like people are like, oh, do you love writing? And I was like, no, I don't love writing. It's not necessarily something I ever imagined myself doing. I think the last thing I'd ever written of any sort of length was, my personal statement or something for residency. But I don't know. I just tried to put it out there, and I told myself, I'm going to try and sit down and write 10 posts. If I can write 10 articles, then I'll put it out. And I just happened to kind of stumble through 10 posts. I put it out, and then I was on my way. But it's not something I was comfortable with. You figure things out on the fly, and you actually, when you talk to other people, it's not like they jumped out of there with the most polished website or the most polished writing, this or that. People figure things out as they go. And, the most important thing is that I wanted to get the word out there. I wanted to tell people about this. I wanted to share this thing. And really the other stuff, I was like, okay, that stuff's going to figure itself out.
Now, there was a post that I think it was on your group, and it's something that I've had asked, is that you're the passive income MD. Now, there's some would argue that it's not necessarily passive. So you're still working full time, right, in anesthesiology? Or?
No, I'm not. I'm actually working part time now. I'm working about half time.
About half time right now. So how much time is devoted to your real estate endeavors? I mean, how much are your properties right in your area in LA? Do you have them in different states? How do you manage everything like that?
Yeah, I think let's start with your first point here. Passive income is not that passive. I think passive income is a term that's thrown around all over the place, and people have different definitions for it. I think that the definition that a lot of people have is that you just are creating income totally while sitting on the beach, relaxing in a hammock under a palm tree with the beach. I wish it was that easy. To be honest with you, it doesn't start like that. Could it potentially be like that? Absolutely. But the way I see it is that passive income is really just leveraged time. Right. Really. I mean, it's a way for you to create more income that isn't dependent or just tied proportionally to your time. As physicians, we have to see patients. We have to put in 8-10 hours to create that income. If we want to create more income, we have to put in more time. And when it comes to passive income, that's not necessarily the case. You might start by putting in a good amount of time, energy, and effort up front, but it starts to grow and grow and grow in terms of your income. And later on, hopefully you've got this really nice stack or cash flow coming in from either the same amount of time or even less amount of time. But it doesn't mean you don't put any work in initially to kind of get things going. But I think that potential is there. And that's kind of my definition of passive income. And so over time, when I first started, I was putting in a lot more time than I was getting out. At times people were saying, oh man, all that time you're spending reading, learning about this thing, like if you had just worked as a physician and traded those hours in, you would have made a lot more. And I think that's the truth. But the funny thing is over time now, I'm able to put in less time and now I've got more income. And so that's allowed me to really cut back on my clinical work. Now, for me, the goal has never been to completely retire. I mean, I like what I do. Yeah, I do OB anesthesia because I'm passionate about it. So my goal has never been to completely stop working altogether. I just really wanted to get it down to a place where it was really sustainable for me. And I felt like I was doing it because I was passionate about it. And so that's really what's happened. I mean, I work about half time right now. I work about 20 hours a week. And with the rest of my time, I focus on my real estate, focus on my blog, focus on my businesses, and just have a good time with that.
And that's the thing too. I can tell you're having a great time, doing all of these kinds of things as not only as a blogger and an investor, you're sharing information and your audience is really benefiting from it.
Well, thanks. Yeah. I mean, trying to get it out there as much as possible. I mean, I'm not the only one doing this. There are others, and I'm trying to highlight those on my blog as well. And yeah, I mean, just want to let people know there are there are possibilities to do a lot of things that you want in life.
Yeah, and another post that you did, because you really have some really, really good posts. You mentioned about, how many are going to be there, 10 to 15 years. And like yourself, like I was in medicine, I left for a bit and I came back because I still, I love medicine. But now I have my own clinic, so I'm kind of living my life on my own terms. And I think that's what we really want, at the end of the day. And I think the other part that you mentioned is, I think the one thing that drove you is when you got those little checks, that little income each month. Probably it compared to what your salary was, it was probably not that significant, but you got that validation income, like is what I tell you, is like, oh my God, it actually worked. I mean, tell me about the time when you actually started seeing that income come in for you.
Yeah, it was bizarre. I mean, I just got a notification the first of the month. Boom, you've had a check or you've had a deposit to your account. And I started kind of getting addicted to that, to be honest with you, because I realized I'm like, I'm not putting any more time in. And these checks are hitting my thing. I mean, at a certain point, they get a little bit hard to keep track of. And that's a good problem to have if you start planting seeds all over the place. But that's great. I mean, like, I think my first one was like, I don't know. I forgot off that 5,000 what it was, but it's like $100 or something like that, right? And I looked at it, I was like, man, that's $100. Maybe if I looked at $100 like every month, or how many of these do I need to put together to ultimately kind of create or support my lifestyle that I want to live right now, where I didn't have to work. And that was the kind of number and calculation I started doing in my head. Like, how many of these deals do I need to invest in? How much do I need per month in terms of cash flow to really be able to do things with my wife and family? And yeah, I mean, to me, that's an easier calculation than a lot of people are trying to do, which is like, they build up a nest egg and they have a 3 or 4% rule, which will hopefully sustain them for the next 30 years. For me, I just think, I don't know, maybe I'm not that smart, but I just think about things on a cash flow basis per month. I mean, that's what we all live on, a monthly cash flow basis. I need X amount per month to live. And that's been my goal. And luckily and fortunately, through these different things, I've surpassed that goal. But now I have other bigger goals. I mean, there are other things that I want to do in life besides just support my family. There's a lot of contribution type stuff I want to do. And really, that's part of my mission as well.
That's awesome. Awesome. We've only got a few more minutes. I did want to talk about, your curbside business. So if you don't know what it is, for myself, we were in the middle of buying a house, and we were looking for just a conventional loan. And I've been out of practice. I won't say how long. I've been out of residency for so long, and I didn't even know about these physician loans. And I happened to catch you on a podcast. I'm not even sure which one it was, telling us about that there was these physician type loans. And I didn't know anything about it. So I reached out to your company, and it was really eye-opening, for me. And we got hooked up with a group realtor. I'm actually having lunch with him later today.
Great.
But became Chris and I.
Yeah, tell him I said hi.
Yeah. But why did you start that company? For me, I was very thankful that you did. But why did you start the company?
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm just throughout my life, it's one of these things where I've made a lot of mistakes. I mean, I've had a lot of failures, but I never like it when other people, it really bugs me when I hear this, other people going through the same thing and they kind of have to deal with the same mistakes and failures. So I always try to share it with my friends, my colleagues. And that was the case when I was trying to buy my own first home. My wife and I had finished our training. Like, we wanted to kind of live the dream and buy our own home and settle down. And we ran into tons of issues. We couldn't get a loan. Man, it was not a fun situation. And that just happened to be in 2011, which was not the greatest time as well for loans and home buying. Well, the prices were good, but the loans and financing were not good. And so we'd almost given up until somebody had recommended something called a physician home loan, which allowed us to kind of get in there with a lower down payment, a little more lenient on student loan debt. And it changed our lives. And, I wanted to share it with the world. And so I started telling all my friends and colleagues, hey, by the way, if you are looking for a home, like, stop wasting your time kind of looking out there, just come talk to whoever I talk to. And so funny thing is, they started telling their friends of friends. And then those people all started calling me, asking me for advice about real estate. Like, what kind of realtor should I be looking for? What kind of loan should I be looking for? And so I took my knowledge and I just started sharing it with people. And after that, a good 20 to 30 people started reaching out to me, I was like, look, there needs to be service for this. Like, somebody needs to help physicians, because we don't have the time to look up all this stuff. We don't have the time for this. And if all these people are dealing with the same thing, there must be others out there, hundreds, thousands. And so I put together a little bit of a service, a little bit more formalized. And I just started, setting up a network. So when people come in, I find out about, almost like triage them. I talk to them, figure out what their needs are, figure out what the situation. I said, look, okay, now I have the experience of doing this myself. And now I've seen 20 to 30 to 50 to 100 people now go through this process. Look, I think in your situation, you should be talking to, this lender or that lender. And then there were people that were moving to different areas and they didn't know any real estate agents. It just so happened that I had a good network of real estate agents as well, just from friends and kind of working in that field. And so I started connecting them to realtors as well. And so we've kind of built and it's grown. And every year on year, we just multiply, and it's been awesome. And then it's a free service. So that's really been the goal. I mean, that's been the help for physicians. And just so people know, it's not that I don't get compensated. We do get compensated on the back end from these people being part of our network, but it never comes out of the pockets of the physicians. They get a free service, for us to help them and be with them throughout the process. And then we have a big social mission aspect component to that too. I mean, we've done, and that's been part of my whole mission thing is we've built orphanages. We've funded academies in Africa for entrepreneurship for young orphans. So this has kind of been my, I guess, part of my life's work, my mission work. And so helping physicians, helping, people globally, and it's kind of all come together. It's been an amazing journey.
And that's awesome that you have that charity aspect too. And the one thing too for people or doctors who are listening is, if you want to get into a type of business, Peter is a great example of physicians working with other physicians. I mean, there is this, this belief, right, that for physicians, we're going to trust each other. And someone who's actually been there, done that, it saves so much time. What's the website again?
It's the company's called Curbside Real Estate. So www.curbsiderealestate.com. And people ask me why the name Curbside. And it came about because I was talking to some people, helping them out with some of this real estate stuff on the side in the hospital. And they're like, hey, this is like a curbside consult for real estate. And I kind of joked about it. I said, yeah, that's kind of what it is. I mean, I'm basically a curbside for that. So I started calling it Curbside. And people started calling it Curbside. And I need a curbside for real estate. And so that's how the name came about, Curbside Real Estate.
It works, right? It works. It works two ways.
Yeah, two ways, exactly.
So we only got a couple of minutes. I know you've got some really cool things that are coming out. Tell us about what's next for Peter Kim.
Yeah, we just launched a brand new course that really helps physicians and other high-income professionals to navigate through a lot of these real estate investments. There's opportunities that are thrown your way all the time you probably have seen them, invest in this apartment building or invest in this retail center or even these medical buildings. But I mean, all of it, the pro forma, which is kind of like the sheet that they give you, the deal, or what's called the deck, it all looks like gibberish to me. And it did for the longest time. And so it took me years to actually figure that out. And a lot of physicians came to me and said, look, what's the best resource to actually learn this stuff based on your experience? And the funny thing is I was like, man, I've looked all over the place. I spent so much time trying to figure that out, going to meetings, this or that. I said, why don't I put something together for you guys? And that's really that's a culmination of almost a year's work to put a course together to really kind of truncate that knowledge from years to really hopefully a couple of weeks. And we're taking a class through it right now. It's not open for enrollment, but we might open one again later on in the fall. That's number one I'm really super excited about. And then the other thing is we're going to be having our first conference, our first Passive Income MD conference. We call it Financial Freedom Through Investing in Real Estate it's really for physicians and high income professionals. We're going to introduce the concept of cash flow, financial freedom, real estate investing for people out there. I mean, from beginners to advanced, because we're going to have opportunities to network. We're going to have some amazing speakers that are already confirmed, and really just some opportunities for you guys to really take action. And so I'm really excited by it. It's all coming together a lot quicker than I expected it. It's going to be on October 26th here in Los Angeles, where I'm at. Hope to see you there, Mike.
I'm going to be there. I'm going to be there. This is awesome.
Yeah. Absolutely. And so we're putting it all together. We don't even have, honestly, the website is under, in development. So hopefully you can throw that somewhere here for these guys if they want to check it out. And we'll go stay on a couple of weeks. And we don't have a huge capacity for this thing. So my guess that it'll sell out pretty early. So I'm excited.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So other than that, it's been pretty slow, right?
Yeah. It's a momentum thing, just like you, man. I mean, you can't stop being busy. I mean, every time every turn around, you're doing something different. And so you're throwing conferences, you're doing podcasts, you're doing these things. And so I'm inspired by that. So I think like just seeing other people like you doing what you're doing, seeing other people that are investing in real estate, doing all that, it's all kind of like momentum building. And it's just really nice being amongst like this community.
Well, I love the optimism, and it really shines through here on the podcast. Peter, it's been fabulous. Let's keep in touch. Just so excited with what you're doing, how you're helping other doctors, and how help them build their own nest egg. And really, at the end of the day, it's all about acquiring assets. At the end of the day, acquiring assets, whether it's your business or your real estate. It's something I like to say is you want to leave a legacy. And sure, you might have that 401k, but you can't always count on that. You've got something where it's growing for your family that's going to continue to benefit you from years to come. So thanks again.
Awesome. Thanks for the opportunity, Mike. Take care.
Thanks, Peter. And for always, guys, whatever it is, keep moving forward.